All right. Hey there, and welcome to another episode. My name is Matt Cotty, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And so, on this episode, I want to talk about what it's like to live in the lens of fear. And I'm going to talk about what that is, and specifically, I'm going to talk about the show Better Call Saul, and really dive into that a little bit today because I just am a huge fan of the show. So before we dive in, just wanted to make sure you guys know that on this Friday, it's August 19th and August 20th, I'm hosting a live 2-day workshop where I'm going to be diving into this topic specifically even deeper, along with several other things. And there's a little link down in the notes. You can also go over to restoredminds.com, and on the very top of the page, there's a little banner that will give you a link where you can register. And so it is live. We are going to be hosting on Zoom. We have a limited amount of spots that we will be able to, seat. So if you want to attend, please register. Please claim your spot. And also, everyone that registers will also get access to the replays as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the topic of today, which is living in the lens of fear. So a lot of people, when someone is wrestling with OCD and anxiety, or let's just call it anything really on the stress spectrum, which can include things like general anxiety, phobias, OCD, panic attacks, PTSD, all the way up to derealization, depersonalization, right? We talk about kind of the stress spectrum of experiences that we can have as humans. When someone's really caught in that, and I'll explain what that means more on the workshop. But when someone's really caught in that, it's very difficult to understand what they're experiencing, because if you aren't in the same internal state as them, you're going to feel like they're not reacting clearly. They're not seeing things clearly. They're not really living in the same world as you. And the thing is like, to a certain degree, like that's true, right? Because in their experience, it looks totally different to them than it does to you. But that really is their perception of the event. And one of the reasons that I like Better Call Saul so much is because they do an amazing job with the character Chuck McGill on really demonstrating what it's like to be caught in this. And for those of you that haven't seen the show, it just ended. The series finale was yesterday. And so great show, recommend it highly. And much praise going out to all the people that put the show on, the production, the actors, and specifically the actor who played Chuck McGill. I just was just blown away at it. And again, this was just like the quote lens that I saw this show through. So when Chuck, he's this prominent lawyer, right, in the show, and I mean, like, headshot or big shot, just kind of like, very, very, very successful. And in the show, you kind of meet Chuck when he's in the middle of his experience with this. And, he's convinced that he has this allergic reaction to electricity. And again, this is the idea of when people are living in the lens of fear, they rarely see it as a problem of the lens of fear, right? What they see it as is the problem is the content or the thing that they're afraid of. So in this experience, Chuck perceives the problem to be this, allergy to electricity, right? Or hypersensitivity or whatever he calls it, right? It's just some made up idea, right? That doesn't really exist. And it gets proven to him in the show that it really is not an actual thing, right? And that really is, and I don't think they ever really claim this to be OCD or anxiety or anything like that in the show, which is fine because we don't need to throw a label on it, right? But what I'm saying is that they just do such a good job displaying the internal experience of what it's like, and then also what it's like for the other people on the outside and what they're seeing, and why they're in, like, there's this big conflict, right? Because both people aren't seeing the same thing in when it comes to the perceived fear. So Chuck thinks he has this fear, or I'm sorry, this allergy to electricity. And one of the reasons that he talks about it is because this one day he had this very, sincere bodily reaction to an electrical stimulus of some kind, when really what he's describing is a panic attack, or some kind of stress response reaction to the body. And this is what happens a lot too, is that because we have let's say a panic attack or an anxiety attack, whatever you want to call it, in a certain situation, we often misperceive that situation as the thing that caused it, when really it was just an internal bodily experience. So Chuck, there's a scene in the show, and when someone asked me like, hey, what's it like living in the lens of fear? Well, the show again shows Chuck. He's completely removed all electricity from his house. He lives like on a camp stove, and he has like these tinfoil blankets he keeps around him, right? And for all intents, people, I've heard people say it again, he looks crazy, quote unquote, or he's lost his mind. And the reality is just not true. It's just not true. He is responding with behaviors to what he perceives to be a very threatening situation. Now, it's a misperception, and that's what the work of OCD and anxiety recovery is, essentially really understanding that's a misperception, that it's not the problem of what you're afraid of, and it's essentially rebalancing the nervous system to respond to the whatever situation it is as a non-threatening situation. But his nervous system really is responding to this, and it really is activating when he, because he's so hypersensitive and hyper aware to the actual thing that he's afraid of. I hope this is making sense as I'm talking, because I'm trying to explain a show. And if you haven't seen it, it might be difficult to understand. So just, you can watch it if you want to. But there's a scene where Chuck is forced to go outside. And mind you, he hasn't gone outside in years, right? At this point, because, and he went from being, again, like this big shot lawyer to, again, housebound. And a lot of people ask, well, how does that happen? It happens just by behavioral reinforcement, right? And it's so good, because basically he's forced to go outside and get a newspaper. And I won't go into why in the show, but you see him run outside, and the show does such an amazing job of like capturing the internal distress that he's experiencing, and just the hypersensitivity that he is aware of with how much electricity is around him, and how hard it is for him to do something like just simply walk outside and get a newspaper. And when you're watching it, and then they also do a good job of having someone watch him do it, and it's just like, what's this guy doing, right? Because that is like, that's what it's like being in the lens. When your nervous system is going off, and you are hyper focused on a certain topic, it creates a lens. It distorts your reality. Now the thing is that most of us that experience or have experienced something like OCD and anxiety know this, right? And we also know that we used to see things differently than how we're seeing it right now. When you're really caught in this loop, because Chuck can remember in the past, hey, man, I used to go get the paper, no problem, right? I used to walk outside, no problem. I used to be able to go and do all my lawyer things, right? Whatever he does. I'm not a lawyer, so, arguing court and cases and all that stuff, right? He was able to do all that, and now he's not. And it's actually not this thing where he has this, disease that he thinks he has. It's just he's caught in this fear loop. And the fear loop is being reinforced through the behaviors he's engaging in, and that's what's perpetuating it. And in the show, they demonstrate to him very clearly that it's not an actual thing. He's not actually allergic to electricity, or he doesn't have this hypersensitivity, that it really is going on in his head. And then he actually takes steps to start getting better. And it's just fascinating, right? They do such a good job. And again, they never call it ERP. They never even claim that he's dealing with OCD or anxiety. But when you want to know, if you are a family member of someone who is experiencing OCD and anxiety, and you want to know what that person is experiencing internally, it would be a great thing for you to watch just that one little scene of the show, because that's what it probably looks like for them. I mean, I can totally relate to what they showed his experience to be like in my own fears in my past, because that's what it looked like. Like something that looks completely safe to everyone else looked like life or death to me. That when I was really caught in the lens. Okay. Now the thing is, I want to really articulate, you don't have to stay in the lens, right? But when that loop is going and you are doing behaviors that reinforce the fear, that reinforce the anxiety, and that loop starts to spin, this lens forms. And it distorts your entire reality. And it's so important that you understand that, because when you understand, when you can think back on your past, and when you weren't in the lens, and if you can recall events where, like, hey, this situation, I used to be able to do this just fine, and right now I can't, all that means is that you're stuck in the loop, which means you can get back to, engaging in that particular situation, whether it's going to a restaurant or driving or whatever it is, that can become normal again. That's what the work is. That's what taking back control is all about when it comes to, what is recovery, right? Recovery is breaking this loop. And when you do, the lens kind of lifts and you're able to see things how you used to see them. But when someone is stuck in the loop, or really stuck in the lens, you can't just force them into doing things they don't want to do. That's not going to help them, right? This is why, like, getting the proper education, learning the skills, applying them correctly, and getting guidance on this is so important. Because if you are seeing the problem as what you're afraid of, right? Like if Chuck was seeing this as really like an electricity problem, you see how difficult this problem is going to be to solve, because we're always going to be treating it as a different problem than what it really is. This is like the central point here of recovery, is like, if you're understanding the problem through the lens in which you're seeing it, you're probably not seeing the problem clearly. And in order to break out of it, again, you have to really understand what the problem is, which is the loop that's ultimately creating this lens. And then once you break the loop through the behavioral process or behavior change process, and using skills like the AAA response, that's what allows your nervous system to calm down, which then again kind of allows you to see things as everyone else is seeing, or how you used to see them. And that is why I just enjoyed the show so much. Now again, the thing is that, well, I'm not going to give any spoilers alert, but the path that Chuck went down, obviously it didn't end up being the right one, at the end of the day. He ended up not having necessarily a good outcome at the end of the show. But that the point that I want to really focus on for this particular episode is just this lens. And then also, seeing how, once the lens lifted, Chuck was really able to take his life back there for a period of time. And he did it through engaging in the behavioral skills that we talk about with OCD and anxiety when it comes to exposure response prevention and a lot of work like that. So anyways, I wanted to just share that today because I thought it was just an amazing depiction. And yeah, with that said, also please make sure to register for the workshop that's coming up on this Friday and Saturday. Again, we're going to be talking about this, going deeper into this. So again, I kind of wanted to give you a little taste about what we're going to be talking about. And yeah, with that said, hope you guys have a great week as always. And if you have any ideas for future episodes or any questions that you'd like me to talk about on this show, feel free to email them to me. You can leave them in the comments below. And the links to everything are right down in the notes as always. So wishing you guys a great week. And I look forward to seeing many of you on the workshop this Friday. Take care. Thank you so much for watching that video. And so if you're struggling with OCD and anxiety, I just wanted to let you know that we have a free training for you over at Restored Minds, where you can start learning how to use our AAA response to really break out of that loop and ultimately take back control of your life. And all you need to do to access is just click the little link below and you'll be taken to a page where you can register today. Thank you so much.